And that's why I'm here. And the truth is perfection. The other end of the physics, the reality, the unified field theory that I present is chaos theory. And yes, chaos theory is merely a theory, as with most quantum theories that make up the realm of quantum physics. But chaos theory fails because if any one thing was not perfect, if any one thing existed outside of the design of nature and was in any sort of state of chaos at any level, then everything would be chaos. And by billions of years that is said to have passed, by that time elapsed, everything would be in an unrecognizable state, in such a disarray where no life or no entity could exist. And that's where chaos theory fails. And otherwise, there is admitted by essentially all realms of science that there is some order that is going on. And if there is an order, then the only way that you would get order out of chaos, or order through chaos, or order instead of chaos, is a design, a grand designer. A design denotes a designer. One can't exist without the other. And if this design is not chaos, then it is order, and that order is an order dictated by the designer, denoted by the designer, and obviously designed by the designer. And that designer is known as God, and that God is either flawed or it is perfect. That God is either chaos or it is perfect. There are no two ways about it. And this is physics and quantum physics, chemistry, mathematics, biology, astrology, astronomy, cosmology. This is everything unified into reality. This is the height of science. This is the Christ, the culmination of science, that tells us that everything we see is designed, absolutely designed. The deeper we look, the more magical the design seems, but it is not random and it is not chaos. If we look at DNA, we see such intellect that we are literally awestruck, beholding a miracle of science, a harmony of what we know as science, what we know as engineering, a mechanism of life that breeds life, and we still have yet to do anything that compares. We humans are capable of so many things, and the greatest thing we'll ever do or know is to know God and God's perfection, God's glory, God's majesty through ourselves, the way that we can view the creation of ourselves and all things in this realm. All sciences relate to this perfection. All sciences denote and track and chart and diagram this perfection. That's all they do. Whether they know it or not, they have been and they always will be on a quest that will lead them to further and further processing and calculation and charting of God's perfection throughout all of the realms of what we call, they call, the world calls science. This perfection exists for evolution. This evolution exists because the universe and all things in the universe are and exist to come closer to the force known as God, the mechanism, the entity, the all known as God. Every planet, every being, every star, every form, and every form of life exists in an evolutionary process that brought it from God and will inevitably send it back to God. There is only this force known as the God force, and by many other names, the ethers, the scalar wave, the dark matter, many terms, the Holy Spirit. But this force, this etheric, this uncalculable force, unchartable force, has brought us from God. We call it birth, and inevitably evolves us back to God in a way that is known as death. And all things in between are only a resistance to that nature that we call life. All things in existence are merely in a resistance to the nature of God, because all there is the perfection of God and the resistance of that nature. God made a realm where God could exist in a thing called space, in a place called time, in a place called time, in a thing called space. And that's the riddle of reality. And I realize that I've opened this topic wide open. And one of the things that I'd really like to fundamentally express is that the nature of perfection, the reality of perfection, will only be understood by those who are close to perfection. And as I've said, perfection is Christ. So to see perfection, one has to be within visual range of seeing perfection. One has to be close. One has to be in the same dimension as perfection in order to see and to comprehend perfection. One might see it without comprehending it. In fact, we see it all the time. Most have no comprehension or even theory of it. One way that I can prove to you perfection exists is that you are here out of the billions of YouTube channels and billions of videos, that you find yourself here learning an utmost rare, and I do mean utmost rare knowledge that for some reason, for some unknown, uncharted reason, you find yourself here on a channel called Christ, learning of perfection. As you continue to understand perfection, you will understand that you've only seen glimpses and heard whispers, heard tales, heard synchronicities of what you will soon grasp as the reality of the universe as you begin to understand why you're here. That all of your generations, that all of your prayers, that all of your family, that all of your dynamics have brought you to a place not only to hear perfection, but to be able to understand perfection. Something that no caveman, no modern man has conceived in such a way to express. What I express to you is that, again, perfection is the Christ. And for you to understand perfection, for you to understand that all things in the universe have been made, maybe solely so that you could come to understand it, so that the perceiver inside of you, the one that you hear, the one that you know, that conscious inside of you, that consciousness inside of you, that you may understand the nature of God, that might be the entire reason for the entire universe. When you grasp the fundamental nature of reality and realize that it is a system that has developed a process of what we call evolution, and that evolution peaks out with an understanding of what I speak to you today, that the levels of truth, the levels of science, the level of reality, the levels of perception, the levels of consciousness all agree at the truth of perfection. We begin to see this. We begin to resonate with the reality of reality, with the nature of nature, with God itself. And that's the potential of mankind and the vastness of our evolutionary processes to gain the truth of the cosmos and to implement as a whole the truth of the cosmos, the science, the physics, the reality, the potential of the cosmos, to understand and to begin to work with the framework of reality is the greatest potential of any species in the universe. And we're here, we're at this cusp of being able to understand the genetic and the cosmic relevance to this thing known as consciousness, the power of this thing known as consciousness, and the power and the reality of this truth called Christ. Many have asked, the greatest ask, the children ask, everyone in between asks, what is truth? Truth is the Christ. Truth is the reality of reality, the nature of nature. Truth has many levels. Many levels. We can see it as an elementary level to a master's degree or a doctorate. And Christ is the doctorate. It encompasses all other levels of understanding. It encompasses all other levels of fundamental truths. But the nature of truth, the nature of reality, has many levels that all ascend and even descend to the Christ. Since everything is perfect, then everything is the truth. Even the lie, even a lie, even the lie, even the great lie is the truth. We have to see the truth in all things. That's seeing God in all things, that's seeing Christ in all things. The truth is within the skew. The truth is within the twist. The truth is within the snake. The truth is within all. So within every lie, there is a truth. Within every liar, there is a truth. Every liar has its truth, and every truth, until the truth of Christ, has its lie. Every truth, every fact, until that fact reaches the Christ, until that truth reaches the Christ, every fact, every truth has its lie within it. And that's the truth. And that's the nature of nature. That's the nature of relativity. That's the multi-dimensional, fractal, holographic nature of Christ within all things, even the lie. That's the Christed perfection in all things. Even within the devil, there is the Christ. There is the truth. That thing that we know as the devil, which is a lie. But within that lie, there is truth. And that's the truth of the lie, and the lie within the truth. And that's the holographic and mirror-like duality in which we live